I filed a criminal complaint against some public officials here, and they informed me that only prosecutors can file criminal complaints in the state of Colorado.
Really?
They also said only prosecutors can file interlocutory appeals in the state of Colorado. I'm like, wait a minute. How can the one person who can't have his rights violated be the only guy who can file an interlocutory appeal?
Right.
That makes zero sense to me at all. But that's how they do it here.
Oh, yeah.
I guess it's going to take somebody with half a brain to teach them that doesn't really work that way. So we'll see how it works.
I appreciate it, Kurt, a lot. Great. Kurt, let's see you healing.
And yeah, I'm the only living case in medical history with a bifurcated liver and a 4-centimeter hole in the middle of my chest because the cops picked me up with a billy club. They stuck a billy club up underneath my rib cage and picked me up about 8 or 9 times till I passed out. Caused a 4-centimeter hole between my hepatic and my portal vein. And it kicked me in the liver enough times to fracture it in 2 pieces. And I'm the only case in medical history that was not found by autopsy.
Yeah. Well,
so
anyways, Kurt,
evidently, the big man upstairs keeping me alive for a reason.
Yeah,
not sure what, but yeah, here I am.
I know exactly. Hey, it's All Day Live, and you might be watching us at night, but that might be during the daytime that we film it. You see it sometime later on. It doesn't matter because we're archived now at seattlecommunitymedia.com, and we're also at archive.org, and now it's amazon.studios.com as well, because we're just trying to get our messages to you that you can get back to us if you want to get a message out as well, because we're public access, community access TV here in the Northwest in Seattle, seattlecommunitymedia.com. But since the last 4 years, we've been archived. Wasn't before, but is now. It's very powerful, and your shows go out on the search engines, by the way. And it's like we're being kind of lulled to sleep as a people. I think we need more communication, maybe even this type of public access TV. That might work too. That might make a difference if somebody signs up for the community access scheduled classes here to learn to become one. Nobody has in 6 months. That's another story. But anyway, I can only do what we do. I think TV is really for us to be able to be seen and heard by us, not special interests that broadcast corporate-wise. And by the way, it seems to be that public access TV is being taken over by syndicated religion broadcast. There's maybe 10, 12 local broadcaster TV producers here in Seattle left. What happens when we're gone? What's going to happen to your reach around the world? With the gift of being able to broadcast online. That's interesting. And
hallelujah.
And we've got KurtRiggin. Kurt is a tribal lawyer. He's a federal lawyer, and he's also the chief. And we're honored because I'm going to ask him exactly how. I don't know if ask you to spell it, but he's going to tell us the name of the tribe here in Washington. But
Kikialis Nation.
Okay, let me go ahead, Kurt.
It's the Kikialis Nation.
Okay, the Kikialis Nation in Washington State. KurtRiggin's about some odd number 12 years ago went with Lewis Ewing and Kenny Wayne, and he'll tell you. He'll get you up to speed on that. That you guys did what? And it was about our Constitution here in the state of Washington.
I don't think Kenny was there.
I don't know who was there. That's all right. Yeah. You can tell us about it. And go ahead.
It was Lloyd Lewis, myself, Lloyd Smith, Lewis Ewing, me, and a few other guys. That my memory is not as good as it used to be, but that was back in 2001. And we went to the National Archives, and we went and pulled all the original constitutions for the states here in the western states, mainly, the ones we were interested in at the time. And we were doing research for a couple different tribes as well, including the Blackfoot tribe. I was doing research for them. And found some pretty interesting stuff. We found that there was no constitutions for the states anywhere to be found, anywhere in the National Archives. Really?
Yeah.
And so we're going, well, what the hell is this? You don't have any constitutions? You're supposed to have a handwritten one here on file. Well, we found that with the we found that written constitution in a miscellaneous document file box that hadn't been opened since 1901. And it was miscellaneous document number, I believe, number 47, maybe, I don't know. No, miscellaneous document number 55, excuse me. So here in the miscellaneous document box, it hadn't been opened since 1901, so 100 years. I was the first guy to open that box in 100 years. Well, I order it up. Well, it's pretty interesting, actually. The story's even more interesting. We get to the front steps of the National Archives, and we flew all the way from Seattle, Washington, which is damn near as far as you can get and still be in the continental United States. We get to the front steps, and they said, sorry, we can't let you in unless you have your National Archives card. I said, great, where do we get those? He goes, on the second floor.
Wow. Yeah.
Okay, well, how do we get that? He goes, it's not my problem. So I said, let me get this straight. We have a team of 6 researchers from Washington State here on behalf of the Washington State Historical Society, and you won't let us in the front door of the National Archives? I said, I need the number of your supervisor. And as a matter of fact, I need the number of the head of the National Archives. So I call him up, and I say, hey, I need your address, both your home and your office address. He goes, well, what for? I said, so I know where to serve the lawsuit that we're going to be filing later on today. I said, because we got nothing better to do. Since we're here to do research and we can't get in the front door, we're going to have to work on it collectively. We're going to work on a lawsuit, and we're going to sue you guys on behalf of our tribe, our collective tribes that we're researching on behalf of. The head of the National Archives came down and walked us up to the front door personally. Nice guy. You know, but it's like, I had to threaten to sue him to get into the front door of the National Archives.
Yeah.
You know? Then we get in, we get up to the second floor, we get our National Archives cards, then we're good. Okay. Well, I ordered this box that nobody's opened in 100 years, and then they said, gee, we can't give you the box. I'm like, why not? Well, that's being verified. I said, bullshit. You know, you want to look at it while I open it, that's fine, but I have a right to that box. I want to see it. They said, well, a guy named Lewis Ewing checked it out. I said, really? I said, don't move. Stay right there. I walked about 25 feet over, grabbed Lewis by the scruff, and said, get your ass up here. Follow me.
Yeah.
So I drug Lewis over to the front desk. I said, this is Lewis Ewing. He doesn't have the box. I don't have the box. Somebody's lying. I said, don't make me call, I think his name was Mark. I said, don't make me call Mark. So I called him. I said, hey, you guys are telling me you can't give me a box that hasn't been opened in 100 years, and I need to look at what's in the contents, and I'm pretty sure I know what's in there, and it's all the constitutions we've been looking for. Boom, I got it within 3 minutes, because he didn't want to mess with us. He'd already butted heads with me once. And so we got our box. I opened it up. Miscellaneous document number 55 is the original Washington State Constitution, written in 1878, known as the Walla Walla Constitution. Because back in 1878, guess where the capital of Washington was?
Yeah.
Walla Walla.
Right.
And so that's where the first bank was, also in Walla Walla.
Right.
And so Baker Boyer Bank, first bank in the state of Washington. And so we, and what most people don't realize is in that Constitution, which if you went to go get a copy of it prior to that, if you went to the state archives and said, I want a copy of the Walla Walla Constitution of 1878, they'd give you a copy, and on that Constitution, it would have a stamp on it that says that this Constitution was never ratified by Congress. Said it right on the Constitution. They had a big old stamp they put on there.
Right.
Well, I thought that was pretty weird. Why would they do that? So while we were there, we pulled all the polling records. We got proof that it was ratified by Congress. It was signed into law. It was passed by the Senate and signed into law by the President. The 1878 Walla Walla Constitution, the only one that exists anywhere in the National Archives for the state of Washington.
Yeah.
Now, in that Constitution are two provisions. One provision says that no city, county, or state official can use their powers or authorities to enrich any corporation whatsoever.
Yeah.
Any corporation whatsoever. It doesn't say except municipal corporations or except corporations known as State of Washington or County of King. Those are all corporations, for-profit corporations registered with Dun & Bradstreet. And it also has a provision in it that says corporate executives and their major controlling stockholders are to be held criminally liable for the actions of the corporation. Now, those two provisions in the original Constitution of the state of Washington and for Colorado and for Montana, South Dakota, North Dakota, Idaho, all those constitutions were buried in this miscellaneous document box.
Right.
And then they initiated these corporations known as state of. And see, in the original Constitution, it says, all actions in the name of the state of Washington shall be in the name of the state of Washington. The being the exclusive.
Right.
Now, look at anything coming out of the Washington courts nowadays. Do you see a "the" on it? Hell no. Because without the "the," it's not the state of Washington. You know, if it just says state of Washington, well, that's a for-profit corporation. So what we've had, effectively, is a corporate takeover of this country.
Yeah.
Because the western states, the people in the western states, they saw what the hell was coming. Montana, same thing. South Dakota, North Dakota, and they knew what the hell was going on. They're going, hey, the railroads are coming in, stealing these people's land and killing them.
Yeah.
And then all these politicians are profiting off of it because they're looking the other way, making sure nothing happens to these guys. So...
Right.
So they said, you know what, we're not going to allow that shit. So they wrote it in their constitutions that, you know, you can't have corporate executives that are immune. If their corporations are polluting, they go to jail. If their corporations commit crimes like murder, they go to jail. The corporate executives and their major controlling stockholders. Wouldn't this be a different world if those constitutions were in full force and effect? And it's not like they can't be.
Yeah.
You know, it's just the problem is we don't have enough people with enough brain cells that can put together a group that are willing to, you know, stand up to what it may be thrown our direction, which is, there's going to be plenty. You know, these people have the purse strings, but those purse strings can be yanked right out of their hands pretty easily. It all takes is a group of people, not one individual, not just one poor, you know, guy who says the sky is falling.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like Chicken Little.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine. It's amazing what we're seeing in this world today and how we're actually dealing with it. And that's my microphone. Anyway, I agree. And it's as far as pissed off, look what they've done to you. If the world was to hear again, as we've had you say it before, corruption in Snohomish County, corruption in the state of Washington, de facto constitutions and de jure constitutions. One was basically hidden, and you guys went and found it in the archives. At the same time, they've tried to make sure that we don't know exactly anything, really, except what they want.
Exactly.
They're pigs.
You know, that's why I don't deal with, you know, I mean, I'll do a little preemptory searching online and stuff, but I don't trust anything that involves law that's brought up online.
Right.
That's virtual what?
Yeah.
What is shit from online? virtual reality, right?
Yeah.
So, they bring, here's these statutes that are, we got off online. I'm like, here's the funny thing. The shit you put online means nothing. All it is a flapping gum.
Yep.
It's like Wikipedia. Really? I'm going to trust a definition from an encyclopedia put together by a bunch of people who don't know their ass from a hole in the ground?
Oh, yeah. And they'd have
it's entertainment. Great, sure.
Well, plus
I actually had a prosecutor come in and pull out a definition out of Wikipedia, and I'm like, Wikipedia? Really? You could actually make your own definitions in that website, I understand.
Oh, yeah.
Ask Stephen Colbert.
Well, try to imagine that if you set up accounts and you're on their blacklist, your accounts disappear. Real quick.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Never-ending story.
Well, that makes that makes a lot of sense.
Oh, yeah. It does.
Because I was always wondering.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. I've tried many times to set up accounts there. I mentioned I'm a scientist. I worked on many different very unique stuff, and I put stuff like, I work with Dr. Brown's gas, Yul Brown, and I helped him put patents together and stuff like that, and our research finding that the sodium hydroxide 3% in low voltage water splits hydrogen oxygen 66.6% to 33.3%. In that ratio, it is a very unique balance of that stoichiometric diatomic hydrogen oxygen. And if it's imploded, which you can either do so through using welding apparatuses as a gas, or even running your car, it goes back to being superhydrated water. Not only is it now, as we proved, that as a plasma, when it's going through the plasma state, can transmute the elements, all elements. It can also neutralize all nuclear waste into being non-nuclear. And doing all that kind of stuff, and then working with Paul Pantone Plasma Technology, of which they put Paul in jail for 6 years and tortured him. All he was an inventor of a technology that challenges the oil mafia.
Well, dude, I'm telling you, inventions are a scary situation. One of my best friends invented aluminized polyester. You know what that is?
I think.
His invention made it possible for the Gulf War.
Really? Yeah. 1 second, everybody. It's hey, everybody. I'm on the. Sorry about that. Yeah. Anyway,
Oops,
go ahead.
ouch.
Yeah, it is what it is. I forgot to turn my ringer off. Here we are. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Kurt. Sorry about that.
Okay, remember Kuwait?
Yes.
Okay, well, when Kuwait was invaded and our boys went over there, do you know what the average soldier lost in weight in a 3-month deployment?
What?
70 pounds.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. Yeah.
70 pounds. Average soldier would lose anywhere from 50 to 70 pounds in 3 months.
Yeah.
Because here's the situation. How hot does it get over there in Kuwait?
About 130, something.
About 130. They had tents that if they put the tents up and they put the air conditioning onto the tents, they could drop at 18 degrees.
Right.
Well, how hot is it?
100.
Plus.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So you're talking 100 to 109, 110 degrees. That's as cool as they got.
Yeah.
Can Americans that are from, I don't know, Minnesota survive when the coolest they can get is 108 degrees?
Yeah. I know.
They don't do well.
No.
They sweat. They don't sleep. They sweat. They sweat. They sweat.
Yeah.
And they lose electrolytes. They lose weight. And then they got to go out and do things in the heat, in a deployment.
Yeah.
So they realized unless we fix this problem, we can't have a war in the Gulf. Won't work.
Yeah.
Well, along came my buddy's invention, aluminized polyester.
Really?
Now, we put that shit in attics in Louisiana, just up in the attic. And we found that a couple different things. First of all, if we put it on the inside of the wood structure, it would disintegrate the wood at an accelerated rate.
Really?
Yeah, because what it did is it reflected all the radiation, all your all your space waves, basically, up back through the wood. So then we realized, okay, if we're going to put it on roofs, we actually have to put it underneath the roofing.
Right.
Okay. We also found out when they put it up in the attics, it dropped the ambient temperature 22 degrees immediately.
Yeah. Yeah.
22 degrees.
Really?
Without air conditioning, without anything. Just
really?
Boom. It's a 22 degrees drop.
Wow.
Now you take and put those in a tent. You put that material in tents.
Right.
You get in that tent, it's automatically 22 degrees cooler. Then you put an air conditioner that can drop it an additional 18 degrees. Where are you?
Yeah.
You're at a tolerable heat that you won't lose weight. Soldiers can actually live in that shit, sleep in that kind of environment, in that heat. It won't bother.
Yeah.
Thereby, boom, all these guys are out in Iraq now. Man, that couldn't have happened if it wouldn't have been for this aluminized polyester. Now, two of my friends that I've known for a long time were the inventors of that. They came up with the invention. They patented. Now, the patent company split their patent 5 times. 5 times. Because there was way too many applications, they said. Government keeps putting in more applications, more applications, more applications. One of my friends, there's 2 partners. One's an ex-Marine Corps vet who was one of the survivors of the Beirut bombing.
Right. Wow.
The other guy, him and his wife, they were really tight friends for a long time. All of a sudden, his wife, who's always been the happiest person I've ever known, most positive person, supposedly commits suicide. 2 weeks later, her husband commits suicide by shooting himself twice in the back of the head.
Jesus.
New Orleans police said suicide. Like, how did he get that second shot off, and how did he get the damn pistol in the back of his head? Seems like assisted suicide to me.
Yeah.
And the one guy that's alive, the ex-Marine, he had to disappear. He had some friends that he's been tight with for a long time, that high up in the military, that said, listen, man, you need to disappear.
Wow.
And he just went out in the swamp.
It was called an aluminized polymer, right?
Aluminized polyester.
Polyester.
And it's a stretch. I mean, basically, you ever seen those hot cold bags in the stores?
Yeah.
That's his invention right there.
Really?
It'll keep frozen food frozen for at least 3 hours in 100-degree weather.
Yeah.
Without anything in it. And it literally changed the face of shipping for seafoods. Revolutionized seafood shipping. You could take an ice pack, throw it in with a fish, and ship it with that bag in a box, and it'll get there frozen 2 days, 3 days later.
Wow.
Couldn't happen before that.
Yeah, for real. I know.
They have big-ass styrofoam boxes, and even then, a day and a half at the most.
Yeah. Yeah.
We did experiments where they sat in the sun in Florida for 2.5 hours. We pulled them out, and they were frozen.
Yeah.
So, it made a huge difference. And now, the guy who survived has not gotten a dime out of that invention. Not a dime.
Yeah. Do you want to mention any names or anything referenced so that we can maybe get somebody who might be concerned that's watching?
I'm not sure if he would want me to, so I can't right now. But it's it's interesting. And we have these guys with foreign-looking names that have put up for the patent. That it's like, where the hell you guys came from? Well, from what I understand, they work for the Three-Letter Boys.
Yeah.
You know, and so. Yeah, interesting what goes on, and little things like that can make all the difference in the world. Because most people don't realize that logistic was a problem they couldn't get around. You can't have a war. You can't send thousands of people when they can't last 6 months deployment.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And then you can't use them for, I don't know, a year after that because they're so depleted. They're so sweated out.
Yeah.
You know, that, unless they're from, unless they're from Arizona and they've lived their whole life without air conditioning, or Florida, or Louisiana. But even then, that's humid hot.
Right.
And this is dry hot.
Right.
So you get them boys that have been living in humid climates their whole life, and their skin does nothing but split and crack and bleed.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And your nose is bleeding all the time because their sinuses are dried up.
Yeah.
If they ain't spraying sinus, saline in their sinuses, all day long, they have problems with nosebleeds. So, there's a lot of things that, if you can't control that environment,
Yeah.
At least while the guys sleep, it doesn't work. Because, I had a friend of mine that, Mark Daly, he had an organization called Hallelujah.org, and he was kicking the shit out of these foreclosures. He was doing really good. I was working with him for years. And we'd sit down and powwow, and he'd run with my stuff, and he had he was really sharp, really knew his shit.
Mm-hmm.
And between the two of us, we were hammering him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, he got arrested for driving on a like 7 or 8 year old restraint protection order. Somebody saw him drive across the driving at the end of the block from where his ex lived.
Uh-huh.
And they threw his ass in jail for violating a protection order. Put him in work release. And they would keep him up till 3 a.m. cleaning cells.
Really?
No shit.
I believe it.
Wake him every 20 minutes. Oh, we're doing checks.
Yeah.
And of course he's sleeping with the lights on.
Yeah.
And then they'd get him up at 6 and send him out to go to work.
Right.
He died of what was known, what they figured out to be fatal insomnia. You ever heard of it?
I have now.
Well, they didn't know it existed until Guantanamo. They started having guys drop off like flies at Guantanamo. And they started doing autopsies, and they found out that their cerebral cortex had lesions in it. They developed lesions in their cerebral cortex. You know why? Because when you sleep, the entire time you're sleeping, your body is repairing the damage you do to your brain while you're awake.
Right.
Your brain gets damaged every hour you're awake. When you go through stress, you get more and more damage done to your brain. And if you don't sleep, if you don't get that sleep, your brain cannot repair itself.
Yeah.
And so they found that when they handcuffed these poor slobs in a standing position to their bars of their cells,
Yeah.
for some reason they weren't getting much sleep.
Yeah.
They started kicking off from fatal insomnia because they wouldn't let them lay down and sleep. And it only took like 3 or 4 months before it started killing them.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, think about it. If you're not allowed to sleep for 3 or 4 months.
Yep. Kurt, try to imagine, I've interviewed Kristen Floor. Her father was Richard Floor, who was a Vietnam veteran that was the party that was indicted in Montana by the DEA when he was following all accordance to law in Montana. And he had over 2,200 people he was supplying medical cannabis to that needed it, including himself. And they killed him in a federal prison, denying him medical treatment.
Well, here's the thing about that. The Montana Constitution, which is the original Constitution, here's the beauty of that. Under that Constitution, Montana is still legally under the Montana Territorial Code.
Yeah.
And guess what the largest export of the United States was?
What?
And besides beef in Montana, one of the largest export in the United States was hemp, was marijuana.
Yeah, you were mentioning that. Actually, we're getting ready for the second part of this program. For those that want to hear from one of the greatest inspirations of the Northwest, KurtRiggin, tribal lawyer, federal lawyer, and chief and all that, and someone that woke somebody up, a few of us, about the constitutional fraud here in the state of Washington. Is there any information on that still online on constitutional fraud?
I'm not much of an online guy, but I know I can. We're working on that. This is a project I'm working on.
Right.
The fraud and the corporate takeover of America is what I'm calling it, because that's what's happened. What happened is our forefathers saw these railroad assholes and their private armies, known as the Pinkertons, murdering people, running them off their land. Families that have been on that land for a long time fought their way to stay on the land. Put their blood, sweat, and tear on that property.
Right.
And all of a sudden the railroad says, gee, we're coming through. And if you don't like it, well, we can fix that.
Yeah.
They just send a bunch of Pinkertons in there and shoot them up.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. Let's talk about that when we get back after this real quick break. We'll see you in just a minute, everybody. Hang in there.
All right.
There's certain things I've been covering, two different issues that are very important. We're not recording yet, but anyway, it's about the TIs. They're called let me explain this to you, actually, because that way I'm educating the people watching too. So let's start from there. I'll let you kind of carry the ball. Yeah, let me get my mic on here. It helps too. Psychotronic weaponry being used on the American people. It's getting very serious. I've had Ron Gilman, Curtis Kimball. I've had Derek Robinson, Freedom from Covert Electronic Harassment. Eric Griffin, who all these different people. Pat Shoup has helped me on these interviews. We've had Lauren Fenton, who is the, let's say, the founder of the Mind Control Summit programs that they've been having symposium event, meaning speakers come in from around the country to Las Vegas every year on this issue. There's quite a few people. Sam Jenkins, How Black Ops Stopped Ascension, all this, numbers of people we've had on the show. So there's two different things that I want to get the public's what they want to or should know. It's very serious. Cloud computing, Tableau Corporation here in the Seattle East Side, 8,000 programmers, a company that became a $1 billion company in just 8 years. Private and secret contracting. They had an event here in Seattle at the Seattle Center, and they all showed up with their families. They had the entire center fenced off. Must have spent $1 million on this. And as I had a chance to walk in, because the guy,
money.
Well, yeah. Well, it's tied to these fusion centers, the DHS, and that the fusion centers, I sense that it's probably part of the Bush crime family. That Stu Webb brings that up about the money laundering, their trillions, hundreds of trillions they've stolen, back through using it to create the means of further control through the means of electronic technology so advanced now that they can control everyone around you, ruin your life if they want to. More or less, it's kind of like remote electronic detainment of anyone and everybody. And it goes into Pro Mega Corporation that you guys aren't aware of it. I've learned.
So that's why my blanket does so good.
Yeah. All right.
This,
okay, so let's.
Blanket that's specifically for blocking that kind of shit.
Yeah, there's a lot involved.
And I do really a lot better underneath it.
Well, I think some advice. There's thousands of these people who have been targeted, who are trying to find a means and a remedy for what's going on, let alone the fact that they've been damaged, their lives ruined, their families ruined. There's a lot of information out there online, people, that you need to get up to speed on. You're all being targeted, by the way, in one way or another. Over 100,000 different types of contracting, subcontracting. It goes into a lot, and it goes in worldwide, and it ties into everything we think of as communications and electronic broadcast. It gets very serious.
Like, we're going to dismantle HARP in Alaska. Oh, that's because they got 178 of them 178, or at least 178 worldwide that a friend of mine has worked on that he knows of.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I'm like, I guess they can afford to dismantle the one in Alaska because now everybody knows about it.
Well, they're just hiding because they have the money, our money, that they've stolen to hide what they're doing. In the meantime, what better thief can you have than to get away with the loot and kill the people you stole from? Then you have no witnesses. And that's kind of why they, like, for example, erase the minds of all the returning veterans so that they can't be testimony to all the war crimes and the criminal agendas of the corporations that create these wars. It gets more serious. People realize, and it's time we wake up. I call us sheep. Some people call them sheeples. I call them shaples. We're shaples now. How else do you explain it? Sheep is one thing, but you follow blindly, but you do it by your own free sheep will. Shaples, you don't even have a choice. We're becoming from sheeples to shaples. That's an interesting thing, but it's true. Anyway, then also the cannabis thing that I've tried to tell them, and we covered it in a couple of shows before, about the cannabis issues of cannabis legalization, taking it from prohibition, taking away from the control of the corporate pharmaceutical companies. And as you people don't realize, these neuroleptic drugs, Thorazine, Stelazine, Prozac, all that stuff, all of them were developed by Department of Defense as weapons. And I've never been refuted by any psychiatrist that I've addressed that to, that they've never said I was wrong. Anybody, because if you do your research, they were developed by, a lot of it by anthrax weapons research. It gets very serious, people. They willfully put fluoride in their water because our so-called public servants let them. And then, and I was out here at Station.
Well, fluoride ain't even the worst part of it, dude.
I know.
Look what they use as an anti-flocculant.
Go ahead. KurtRiggin, by the way.
Washington actually has a reservoir named after the asshole invented this shit.
Okay.
It's like,
yeah.
I'm trying to remember, like aluminum dioxide or some kind of shit like that. I don't remember exactly what it is, but they say, we add a mineral as a anti-flocculant. Well,
yeah,
it's highly toxic, and they could use some of the places like Aspen. I think they use iron oxide.
Right.
What they do is they put that in the water and then they run it through an electromagnet.
Right.
And that shit's as clear as it goes. Actually, now I think they use reverse osmosis now because they can afford to. They're Aspen.
Right.
But shit, their tap water's better than stuff that you get in a bottle. Well, it's funny.
Right.
When I was in there doing the Cannabis Crown, I was a judge for the Cannabis Crown in Aspen a while back.
Right.
These people are, a bunch of these people are drinking real expensive bottled water, and I'm like, do you realize that the shit they're sticking in the glass from the tap is probably better than the stuff you're drinking from? Where is that?
Yeah.
Where does that come? Oh, Arkansas. Yeah, I'd much rather drink Arkansas water than, Colorado mountain tap water. That's been filtered probably better than the Arkansas shit.
Oh yeah, you can imagine. I know.
So, water's, and what people don't realize is, hey, fracking is so great. They do all these, how great fracking is, commercials and all this shit. It's a matter of mathematics.
Yeah.
Sure, fracking provides jobs. You can't argue with that. But they got 1.2 million wells that they claim, that they admit in the United States. Okay?
How many?
1.2 million
wow.
wells in the United States that they admit to. Now, do you know how much water they pump into a well to frack a well?
I can only imagine.
Take a guess.
I can't. Yeah.
100,000?
Really?
No. So if you were to guess, would you guess 100,000?
I wouldn't know where to start.
Gallons? I'll tell you what they do. They use 5 million gallons of pristine, pure, prehistoric water. 5 million gallons per frack, per well. Okay? So you do the math on that one. What's 1.2 million times 5 million gallons?
Right. A lot.
Yeah. That's our water, dude. That's water that can never, ever be replaced. Ever. Yeah. It's prehistoric, pure water. Now, if they wanted to use shit water from a water treatment plant, I'd say, go frack away, boys. I don't care, maybe. But the problem is that water can't be used for anything. It's toxic as hell once they use it for fracking. So you go 1.2 times 5 million gallons per well times 10, because they frack each well at least times. Yeah. So it's pretty interesting. It's all about mathematics, you know. And the problem is when they're done fracking our damn wells in this country and drilling more and fracking more, we ain't gonna have any water. Water's gonna be $6 a gallon, and gas is gonna be $3 a gallon.
Yeah.
Then what are we gonna do? Because you can't bathe in gasoline. Well, you can once, but all you do is light a match and you're clean. But we're in a bad spot here, man. And we're dumb enough. People don't realize, because of Bush, Cheney, and Rumsfeld, all oil companies in this country are immune from all air, water quality, and EPA regulations.
Well, it would make sense, wouldn't it? What can they get away with? Everything they want. Yeah. I know.
If you get a chance, go see Split Estate sometime.
Yeah.
You can access it on public TV in Colorado.
Split Estates.
Called Split Estate. It was made here in Colorado. And it's about families these companies have just come in and put wells within 100, 200 feet of their houses.
Right.
Blew out their well. And, the guy was, the guy's old, the husband was a truck driver, so he wasn't hardly ever home.
Right.
But his wife was home all the time. And she got to where she can barely walk, she can barely talk, because of the toxins in the water from them blowing out their well.
Right.
So, hold on a sec. Let me take just a second break here. Right?
Okay.
I'll be right back.
Okay.
You still there?
Yeah, still here.
Okay. Yeah. So, it's pretty interesting, the shit that's going on in this country, and people don't have a clue. Oh yeah, gas prices are getting better. Really? No. It's not about the gas prices getting better. We're shooting ourselves in the pecker.
Yeah.
We're pissing in our own water.
Yeah.
Only worse than that. We can drink our own piss. We can't drink the shit that comes out of those fracking wells.
Yeah.
And I think we should, we should start using the word frack a lot more.
Yeah.
These fracking assholes. Frack these guys. Frack these damn political whores that are selling off all of our water. And they pay 3 cents a gallon for this pristine water they pull out of the ground. And most of the time, did you know that the Koch brothers admitted that majority of their mineral money comes from Indian land?
Really?
And the Eloise Cobell settlement gave the Indians $3.4 billion because they've been defrauded on Indian lease land. Now that comes right from Congress, right out of our pockets. But who's that shit going into? It's going into the Koch brothers' pockets by their own admission. Who's going to go after those guys?
Yeah.
Same people that are going to go after Monsanto for poisoning all our food. They've made a majority of our food toxic now.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And the thing is, Washington State, their farmers lost a sale of millions of bushels of wheat in eastern Washington. They had millions of bushels of wheat sold in eastern Washington. And the Japanese came and tested it and found out this shit's genetically modified. So for some reason, they didn't want it. Well, the problem with it is none of those farmers are growing genetically modified wheat, nor have they. None of them. So how did their wheat get genetically modified?
Yeah.
You know, and unfortunately, Congress passed the Monsanto Protection Act. Did you ever heard of that one?
No, I've not.
Oh, yeah. Congressional Act. Look it up. They passed an act of Congress to protect a criminal organization known as Monsanto that, you know, and what's funny is I had, you remember Bob Bender?
Yes.
Mr. Fanu Lanu. I really like Bob.
Yeah.
He pulled at my FBI file.
Yeah.
Back when we first met. And he's the one who told me. He said, "Did you know that your FBI file starts when you were in 5th grade?"
Yeah.
I said, "No, you got to be kidding me." He goes, "Didn't you write some letters to Senator Mike Mansfield and the president?" I said, "Yeah." "And send him some posters?"
Yeah.
I said, "Yeah." He says, "You're aware that, you know, because of what you and your whole school, your whole class and your school did, that they banned DDT in the United States based on a Senate bill that was submitted by Senator Mike Mansfield from Montana."
Right.
And he said it was because you and your whole class wrote letters and wrote up posters and sent them to all the senators and said, "Hey, what are you guys doing to our future?" And I found an egg when I was a kid. I found along the Missouri River. I was tramping around there, and I found an egg you could almost see through, and the shell was almost like leather. And I took it to one of my teachers at school, which I didn't know at the time was also a conservationist. And he said, "Holy shit, this is DDT." And he told us all about DDT, taught us a lot, you know, all about what it did and how it wouldn't get out of the ecosystem. That what it did is farmers would spray it on their crops, it would get into the water supply, the fish would consume it, and the raptors like the eagles and the ospreys and the hawks would eat these fish, and it would make them so they couldn't reproduce ever again.
Right. That's Rachel Carson, Silent Spring. She wrote the book in 1963. Right. All about that. It was her.
Yeah. Well, I was in 5th grade, and I think that was a big part of us kids being pushed to go, hey, you know, and it empowered me as a 5th grader. I was like, shit, man, we could do anything. Little did I know, you know, it was an illusion. What's funny is I remember I was at Malmstrom Air Force Base, and Henry Kissinger got up and said, "This base would make a great POW camp. You have the Missouri River here with a cliff straight down, and nothing but barren land for as far as a man can see." I'm like, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
You know, what the hell is that?
I know. But at least you get a chance.
That stuck with me. And that was, what, 50 years ago?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I was just a kid back then, but that stuck in my brain. I'm like, what in the hell was that? You know, what is it going to turn it into? What, are they going to send the Vietnamese over here and put them in POW camps? I don't think so.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that kind of weirded me out.
Yeah, I can imagine. And in the same perspective, though, as we're talking about cannabis and hemp and getting it off of prohibition, because it's just simply, why would they have it on prohibition? It makes no sense at all. Not at all.
Well, it does, because the people who were behind it the most were the biggest consumers and investors in paper on the planet. Weyerhaeuser was the biggest push behind it that most people don't know. Weyerhaeuser invested millions, and so did Hearst. Hearst and Weyerhaeuser collectively invested millions to get hemp made illegal. Because think about it. Hemp is a renewable resource that can be made every year. It is stronger, it is better, it is a way better quality paper. And after World War II, we had ramped up hemp production because they had a big thing called Grow Hemp for Victory. You can actually check out that movie online. Hemp for Victory. pretty cool.
Yeah, I bet.
And right now, you know what a gram of viable industrial hemp seeds go for as much as?
How much?
$50 a gram.
Wow. Yeah.
So, and here's something that I don't think the law enforcement has ever taken into consideration. If they started growing industrial hemp in the mountains of California, there'd be no guerrilla growers because all their weed would turn to shit.
Yeah.
But I don't think they want to do that because they'd be cutting their own throats.
Yeah.
Because where do they get most of their tax dollars? From pot.
Yeah.
They admit it now. Oh, yeah, that's where we get most of our tax money. Weed.
Yeah. Interesting.
So.
I know that we mentioned before, we brought it up, and I told Sharon Foster, the chairman of the Washington State Liquor Board, handling this commercial cannabis from the I-502 vote that brought it in. And I've seen her many times. I've filmed her and interviewed her, and I've told her, why hasn't anyone, I said to him, first of all, we're an extinction event, and second of all, cannabis can help us sustain through that. At the same time that it can also provide us resources that we may need to have to survive through it, maybe the last protein left to eat after the seafood's dead. But in the meantime, we are in a event with the cannabis thing that it's like, why hasn't anybody filed addendums to the Organic Farm Bill 1991, which we've talked about that. I worked with Gene Kahn and Yvonne Buckley and the OGBA, Organic Growers and Buyers Association. In my doing so, I helped create the American Spirit Tobacco Company. When the gal that started it, I didn't know what she was doing, and she asked me at the Philadelphia restaurant convention that I was at in 1991 when I met her, and it was just an idea. She hadn't done anything with it. And I ended up working with her because she was the best way to write the Organic Farm Bill for tobacco. And so it worked hand in hand, and then we created the American Spirit Tobacco Company out of all that. And anyway, if she ever sees me on TV, I'd like her to get back to me if you can. But anyway.
Next one, you start smoking again.
Yeah. Well, everything's going to vaporizers, which I've seen are much more handier and less dangerous. There are over 275 chemicals in tobacco sold as a physical object at the stores, cigarettes, whatnot. There are no actual residential unless it comes from the growing of the tobacco. That's how pure it is. And so and then the federal government's trying to stop the vaporizers. How's that? I mean, come on. Don't they go a little overboard? I mean, they're mean and nasty scum anyway.
Well, they ain't getting their money,
Greedy, slimy, parasitic scum.
It's kind of funny because, the tobacco laws are based on the consumption of tobacco.
Yeah.
Not on the vaporization of an oil created from tobacco.
Right.
So it's really screwing them up because they don't have any laws that allow them to tax the shit out of it like they can tobacco.
Right.
So you got
Yeah.
You got to give them a little sympathy there, poor guys.
Oh, poor little piggies. As you destroy the planet you're on.
They're used to.
These scum are
it's getting
going
tougher to, nowadays it's like shit, they got to give money to tobacco education to keep kids from using it. And they're like, shit, man, that's our future.
Well, have the Bush crime
we got to
family.
get those kids hooked on tobacco so we could stay alive.
I know. Yeah.
And it's getting tougher for them.
Oh, yeah.
So the savior of the tobacco company literally is these vapor cigarettes. Because if they can get, and what the thing is, they didn't think of them. And so they're not the major guys that are controlling it. And that really ticks them off. They're starting to get in it. Because they realize how big this is.
Oh, yeah.
And it is healthier, if you're going to use tobacco for something other than religious purposes, like I do, you're better off to use a natural product that isn't so pumped with chemicals that, it's scary.
Yeah.
They can't even publish them. Let me put it this way. If they put how many chemicals were in tobacco on the package, they'd have no room for anything else.
Well, they don't tell you about the radiation that's in it too, because of the rain that's coming down from Fukushima and other sources. Is very high in radioactive materials now. So.
Well, I'll tell you what. My stepdad's like, hell, I've watched elk die from strontium poisoning right in front of me, and it didn't bother me. You know, all shit. You know, he was one of those old tough old Marine who fought in, you know, he was a sergeant Guadalcanal and was in Saipan, Tarawa, Gavabutu, Iwo Jima.
Yeah.
You know, a whole different genetic structure than ourselves. Because those were a lot tougher generation, I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah.
The people we got nowadays couldn't pull off what our older generation did. They couldn't have done it.
No.
You know, because, you know, they've lived a softer life. Because, you know, I mean, shit, Grandpa, you know, and all my great uncles and stuff like that, those little boys, they had to, you know, they had to fight just to get fed, just to eat. There was no grocery stores. You know, there was a general store, but that was a long ways away.
Yeah.
And that was a one-day trip there and back.
Yeah.
Someone says it's more than that.
Oh, yeah.
So,
well, Kurt, real quick, we got about 7 minutes left, 8 minutes left. I want to mention that if we can get more advice, for example, the targeted individuals, if this is tied to this psychotronic weapons that's being used disguised as research, I have several people who have been extremely targeted.
You ever heard of gang stalking?
Oh, yeah, it's all part of, brought up all that. We've done about 20 one-hour documentaries on this with local people here who have been targeted.
Last time I flew back from Seattle, I bought a brand new grinder while I was in Seattle, aluminum, you know, for grinding up my medicine.
Right.
And I got on the plane. Thing was brand new, polished, shiny as hell. I get on the plane. I come here to Denver, which ain't that long of a flight, and I get here and it's oxidized.
Yeah.
Some of it's got white oxidation all over it.
Really?
How the hell does that happen on a flight? You know, somebody obviously sprayed it with something. Yep. Along with the rest of my clothes.
Yeah.
You know?
They did that to me too.
I'm like, what the hell is this? I mean, I had a friend of mine who's like, oh yeah, they're spraying my house. I wasn't too sure whether I believed him or not. Well, after I saw that, I called him up and said, dude, I know exactly what you're talking about, brother. I totally believe you. He was like, yeah, shit. I can't believe you doubted me. I'm like, yeah, well.
Oh, yeah.
Sounded crazy, dude, but, you know, I know metal.
Yeah.
It's one thing I know, is I know metal. I've worked with it most of my life. And I know it takes more than a couple hours for a piece of polished aluminum to become oxidized like it's 20 years old.
Right.
Unless it has some help.
Really quick on this advice thing. What would you advise these targeted individuals about what they need to do, like Laura Saul